Hello my fellow Americans. I speak to you tonight in hopes of exposing the truth of the Apollo 11 moon landings. While NASA has steadfastly maintained their account of the events, I feel an intense obligation to reveal my first-hand knowledge of the events of July 20, 1963. Let me be unequivocally clear, never did myself, nor Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, nor Lunar Module Pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin Jr. once set foot on the lunar surface. Moreover, never once did Apollo missions 11 through 17 ever leave low Earth orbit, which was as far as was necessary to convince the mass media of the presence of zero gravity. All footage of astronauts examining the moon's surface was filmed on Earth, and in black and white to intentionally degrade picture quality. Despite the laughable absence of any type of jump possible under the gravitational forces on the moon, our movements in these segments were enhanced by harnesses guided from above. It is very easy to see for yourself the faint glimmer of steel cable in many of the Apollo mission videos. What's more, the spacecraft left no blast crater of any kind and stirred up no moon dust upon landing. The moon dust would have been particularly easy to disturb because of the absence of a lunar atmosphere. There would have been no ambient air resistance to combat engine exhaust, and the lunar surface would have been very dry and powdery. In addition to no blast crater, the purported footprints are clearly phony as well. The moon's gravitational pull of 1.64 meters per second squared is far too light to produce footprints nearly 3/4 of an inch in depth. And because moon dust would have been completely dry, there is no way the ridges of the footprint walls would have had enough residual moisture to pack so tightly. Have you never once built a sand castle? I myself was complicit in misrepresenting footage. One such instance occurred July 19, 1963, when aboard Apollo 11 at a distance of 120 miles from the Earth, I falsely claimed we were, quote, 130,000 miles out. As much as it shames me to tell you tonight, we never made it 1% of 130,000 miles. In fact, we only traveled 1/20th of 1%, or nearly 1/2000th of the distance necessary to reach the moon. To give the illusion of a far journey from the Earth, we traveled to low Earth orbit, where the sphere of the Earth just filled up the circular window of the spacecraft. Since the footage was shot from the back of the darkened spacecraft, the Earth, set conveniently in a window against the pitch-black interior of the spacecraft walls, looks to be hundreds of thousands of miles from Earth, when in fact it is only hundreds. The technology of the time was in no way capable of providing sufficient protection from the Van Allen radiation belt. Both our electronic equipment and our life functions would have had to sustain intense amounts of radiation for a period of 4 to 6 hours. In fact, no modern technology is capable of providing this protection. At the International Space Station, at a distance of only 190 miles from Earth, astronauts frequently receive radiation scares and must enter armored shelters aboard the station to protect themselves during periods of intense solar flares. Given that the Van Allen radiation belts start at an approximate altitude of 500 to 1,000 miles from Earth and extend outward nearly 12,000 miles, it should arouse your suspicions that at 190 miles one must seek occasional shelter aboard the ISS, the world's most advanced spacecraft. Yet the Apollo craft of 40 years ago was able to sustain 2 trips of 2 or more hours through this deadly field. Let me explain this in cold hard data for those of you that blindly accept the volition of your government as an absolute truth. The Van Allen radiation belt releases radioactive protons with energy levels of 10 to 100 mega-electron volts. By comparison, survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki suffered cancer, birth defects, and other ill effects at exposure levels of 1 to 30 mega-electron volts. Survivors of Chernobyl suffered similar effects at 1 to 3 mega-electron volts. Not only does the official story hinge on this implausible passage, my crew and I would have needed to survive this deadly exposure twice, as we not only supposedly went to the moon, but also returned from it. To those heretofore unconvinced of the fallacy of the official version of the events, I urge you to consider the sinking of the Lusitania, the creation of the Federal Reserve, the Kennedy assassination, the Watergate scandal, Waco, the 9/11 attacks, the presence of weapons of mass destruction, the Pat Tillman debacle, the TARP Act, and many of the countless other occurrences of the U.S. government engaging in deliberate falsification for political gain. Thank you very much for your patriotic attention to this matter. Only once we remove truth's protective layers will we be able to analyze the real significance of this event in the context of modern history.